And so resisting that is bad for the workers who are afraid of that technology. So we wanted to make sure we included them. And then we wanted to make sure that the small to mid-sized companies can stay competitive. That was really important. And we had to be able to build a tool that the people who are already there could use, because we don't hear from our customers that they want to eliminate some number of jobs. That used to be a thing, right? That used to be why somebody would go to a robotics company and say, I want to reduce my headcount by this much. And for as long as Waypoint has been in business, which is a little over 4 years now, the only thing we've heard from our customers is we have had a for hire sign in the window for 5 years and nobody shows up. And when they do, they don't show up twice. There is this unbelievable labor shortage that I have a hard time squaring with, with headlines. Just every segment that we talk to, they have a hard time finding people. And so it's even harder to find a roboticist if you don't have a robot that can be utilized by the team you've already got. So from a standpoint of making robots easier to use and therefore used by the people who are on the work, on the job now, in the workforce now, empowering those people to be part of the automated future so that their companies can be part of the automated future, so that this country and other countries that utilize robotics can be part of that automated future. That's really what we have focused on. And there are other robotics companies that are really starting to embrace that. And it's good to see.
Thank you, Jason. That was actually pretty good. And Fadi, thank you for giving us an overview of the industry. So this is exactly what the point is. If you were to read the articles and the papers today, it was talking about the largest number of voluntary no-show to work. I think it was 670,000 last month that actually said, we're not going to work now because it's a dead-end job. It's not something I'm learning from. It's not something I'm gaining any information from. It's not something that's enriching my life. And kudos to you, Jason, for understanding where that trend was going and starting to create robots that actually don't take away from life, but add to your life by doing the dead-end jobs and repetitive tasks that there's no learning environment for. So in terms of paying attention, as we look at the various changing landscape of technologies, as Fadi has talked about, has all been about paying attention to what's happening in the environment around us and looking at it from a different point or viewpoint to see, without getting caught up in the stigma of the press. We're not taking away jobs. We're creating better jobs, etc. I have to. There are a few questions, but we're going to have to take this on hold because we do have. We're running behind schedule, and we've got folks in various parts of the world that are showing up and need to show up. So, Fadi, if you want to make a closing statement, talk about, give us a prognosis of what you see changing in the landscape over the next. I don't want to go 10 years. Let's say 3 to 5 years in terms of robotics and their utilization.
Yeah, I think so far we are seeing lots of activities in manufacturing and logistics. So, I mean, those two industries, historically speaking, have been highly automated already. So what's happening now is basically they kind of, either we are automating kind of small to medium-sized companies that couldn't afford the very expensive industrial robots and very expensive kind of automation technologies, or some of those companies are basically upgrading existing systems so that they can do more with less. So those two sectors are already kind of very hot in terms of robotics adoption. We are seeing more activities happening in the construction space and healthcare. So when you think of using robots, companies like Dusty Robotics, for example, or Rugged Robotics, or companies looking at fully automated, customized modular homes from the design to kind of the modules to be sent to sites, drones for inspection, autonomous kind of heavy equipment and trucks. All of that. I mean, construction is an interesting industry because it's an industry that having huge pressure in terms of more throughput and more productivity to cope with increased demand. But at the same time, it's an industry suffering from shortage of labor. So how do you solve this equation without having robots? So this is definitely we're already seeing lots of activities happening. Another driver for robotics and construction, it might sound sci-fi, but I think it's happening, which is going to other planets and the moon and Mars and colonizing other planets. There's no way that we can build kind of shelters and construction there without the use of robots. We cannot send people there. We cannot send building equipment. We have to use robots and existing material on those planets. And we, in Mass Robotics, we hosted 2 robotics and construction summits over the last few years in collaboration with Autodesk. And we had a gentleman from NASA who came in and spoke about what NASA is doing around building structures in outer space. So this is for construction. The other one is healthcare. Obviously, the pandemic was just a wake-up call, but even before the pandemic, we have seen lots of activities around surgical robots, more medical devices, equipment which is more smart, more kind of customized for individual users. Lab automation to kind of speed up the process of drug discovery and material development. Companies like Kibotics and others. So we have seen lots of activities happening around the healthcare robotics. I think another kind of key space is agriculture. I'm personally skeptical about kind of using robots in the outdoors kind of agriculture. I do believe that robotics will take off and will have a huge adoption in indoor farming. So this is where I see the strong kind of use case because it's a contained environment. You don't have the complexity that you would have in an outdoor environment. So these are some of the things that I expect will happen. I think there is a generational aspect, generation that are used to video games and dealing with kind of machines and robots and so forth. Those are the kids that are growing up now to become people who make decisions on how to design factory floor and other operations. So I think this will also help in terms of speeding up the adoption.
Thank you so much, Jason and Fadi, for that overview. We are having a session at 4 o'clock on space technology and space commerce. So if you're available at 4, just join us back for that. I apologize again for not being able to give you your full time, but we'll have you back on a link to learn, and we can go a bit more of this in depth with a smaller crowd. Thank you so much.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Stephen and Doug, I'm so sorry. Apologize for keeping you waiting. You were on time and I'm not. We apologize for that, but I'm glad you're here. And Stephen, I'm going to mention that Stephen Paulette is an advisor to Link2, just so you know. And he's brought a special guest today, Doug, and the topic is public markets meet private equity, and that's what we're about, right? How do we find private companies to invest in for our community, and what to look out for in public companies? So, Stephen, I'll let you introduce yourself, and Doug, and you can do that, and I'll step out of the way for a bit. Thank you so much, and apologies again.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much, Karim. I really appreciate it. Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm advisor with Link2, also currently an advisor of Parkside Securities, which is a little bit of a kind of a Robinhood type company for Chinese retail investors investing in U.S. equity from China. and I'm also currently involved in a startup cryptocurrency algorithmic trading hedge fund. But before all that, I did a 20+ year career in 10 years in mutual funds and 12, 13, 14 years at a hedge fund. Was at Citadel, and that's where I developed a relationship with Doug and his partners. That within hedge fund land, we'll think of it as so competitive, but quite honestly, we get a lot more value collaborating with peers, particularly peers that you think are really smart and doing interesting things and professional companies. And that was something that was the case between myself and Doug's firm, Standard Pacific, and his partners, Rajpal Pakistan and John Aborn, which I spent a lot of time investing alongside. For this panel, I thought that Doug was just an ideal person to talk to, because as we're evolving here, and you're getting more opportunities to invest in private companies as smaller and smaller investors. And yet there's also a lot, a resurgence of interest in investing in public companies as well. And I thought that talking about the process from a couple of professional investors, myself and Doug, who made our careers mostly out of investing and performing on the public equity side, and have now transitioned to spending a little bit more time in our personal capital within some private companies. Doug has been far more active on the private side than I have. But Doug's had a lot of success on both. So Doug was at Standard Pacific for a number of years and is currently investing his own capital for his family office, Slewgrass Capital, and is involved in a number of different firms. So Doug, welcome. If you want to add a little bit to that introduction at all, otherwise we can dive in.
No, that's great. Thanks for having me. Yes, like as you mentioned, Slewgrass has about 25 portfolio companies, and again, I started investing in private, mostly software technology companies about, probably 15 years ago. We returned capital at Standard Pacific 3 years ago. So I have been much more involved with the companies in the last 3 years than I was able to be prior to that. And they range from really early stage seed round to late stage kind of FGF rounds, and even a couple that have gone public here in the last couple of years. So I've kind of been involved across the whole gamut there. And as you said, spent most of my time with public technology companies over the last 20 years. So understanding kind of what drives a good public company and a good stock is always in the back of my head when I'm making private investments.
Exactly. That's a great segue. So let's talk a little bit about what's your process. Everybody's got a little different version when you spend as much time, with various investors in public equity. There's more differentiation and more work and research than I think the average person